Hi and welcome back to the channel. This one's a day or two later. Sorry about that. I got a little bit of wobble psychologically from all this lockdown business, and so it's a little bit delayed. On the bright side of things, I can do this without moving one tiny bit. Because I've got the remote for this particular camera. It's a Sony ZV-1. And I like it. It's the best vlogging camera I've ever had. Anyway, leaving that tech stuff aside, today's video is about hidden gems of 1970s American and English television. Things that are available on physical media that you might not have seen, but are ineffably, each in their own way, cool. So we'll get the show started with a series that went 2 seasons, 8 episodes a series, which starred a guy who'd started out in movies but then moved on to television, as many actors did, from the 1970s, and I'll find out exactly when in the 1970s, 1972 or 1973, one of those two. Very disorganized here. And it is George Peppard in Banacek. Now, Banacek was an interesting series. It went 2 seasons. There's the first season on DVD. Here's the second one. Really interesting TV series. It was about an insurance investigator called Thomas Banacek, played by George Peppard, who lived in Boston and had a very elitist attitude to things. And he would get jobs to find things that had been stolen. And every one of the cases, something was stolen in a really imaginative way. There's a case where a railway boxcar was stolen while the train was moving. There's another one where a footballer was kidnapped in the middle of a game and disappeared. There's another one where a cellist disappears from a sealed case in a museum. So there are all these great mysteries and some really unlikely solutions to how things get stolen. But it's played with a bit of a light tone, a lot of fun to it. There was also a novelization of Banacek, which I happen to have a copy of. Like a lot of TV series, they spun these things off to make a few extra bucks out of them. But I like the tone of Banacek. Like I said, 2 seasons, 16 episodes. You can get through them pretty quickly if you want to binge. And they are really entertaining. They're well written. The secondary characters are kind of fun. The cops and the insurance people he has to deal with are always guest artists. It's just of its time in a certain way, but it is great fun. And it's always good fun to try to figure out the mystery before the protagonist does. Chances are you're not going to do it because the solutions to these puzzles are incredibly unlikely. But that again is part of the fun of it. Just going along for the ride with it. And it's a comfort thing for me, but I think people who haven't seen it before may well get a lot out of watching Banacek. Back in the 1960s, there was a TV series about a millionaire police captain called Burke's Law, starring Gene Barry, and there was a spin-off series. They did a kind of secret pilot of it as one of the episodes, and it featured a female private eye who has a lot of attitude. She's sexy, she's a woman standing in her own in a man's world, and it turned into a 1-season TV series starring Anne Francis and John Erickson, Honey West. Now, if you haven't seen Honey West, it's a lot of fun. It's in black and white, which actually has a charm about it. I don't think you could add anything to this by putting it into colour. But she's a detective who works with her off-sider Sam Bolt, played by John Erickson, and she has a pet ocelot called Bruce. Now, if you saw the recent Harley Quinn movie, she has a hyena called Bruce. It's a dead steal from Honey West. Now, Honey West is great. She's a judo black belt. She can handle men pretty well. She does get into some threatening situations, but works them all out. And Anne Francis is perfect in this role. She has a lot of fun with it, and I think it may have been a bit ahead of its time. I don't think that forthright women were something that at least American television was ready for in the middle of the 1960s. But for me, and watching it now, it is a lot of fun. And as I said, it's available on DVD. You should check it out. There aren't too many extras from what I can see, but I don't believe it needs it. I think it stands on its own, and I really enjoyed revisiting some of the episodes. I haven't watched them all yet, but I think I may be due for a bit of a Honey West binge, either here in the man cave on the TV behind me, or on the big screen in the other room. I think it's about time I dipped into that. While we're still in this lockdown, by the way, the lockdown here has gone on 10 to 13 weeks so far, and we're only allowed out 2 hours a day, and apart from essential stuff, so, and in a 5-kilometer radius. So we're really locked down here to try to get rid of this virus. And so I think binging some good old 1960s action television may be what's called for. So moving right along from that and trying to put that there so it doesn't fall down, I will go to another series, which is what they call a wheel series in a way. There are 3 different protagonists, all in the same situation with the same secondary characters in an action format. Now, there were a couple of other series that have done it before. I think there's at least one, which was Name of the Game, which had Gene Barry, Anthony Franciosa, and who was the third one? I'm going to have to look that up because it's going to drive me nuts if I don't. And the third one was Robert Stack. Now, what I didn't remember was Robert Stack. He's one of the most forgettable actors in cinema, unless he's doing a Zucker Abrahams Zucker movie. But the Name of the Game had that in a format of a large newspaper magazine kind of conglomerate where they had 3 different investigative reporters. But this series that I'm about to talk about has it in a secret agent kind of context. There is a large corporate private eye organization called World Securities Corporation, which doesn't sound creepy at all. And it has 3 different agents who travel out and do the secret agent kind of slash private eye stuff for the corporation, while they have some advanced technology on board. Now, the advanced technology is a small device. I'm going to put it up on the screen now. You can be put it into a tie clip or a pendant or attached to a watch. What it does is it monitors audio-visual stuff and gives feedback to the corporation, as well as giving telemetry on the body functions of the agent involved. Now, the agent can hear what the corporation is saying because they've all got little implants behind their ears in the mastoid process as microphones and earbuds. And yeah, so it's about 30 or 40 years ahead of its time as far as the technology is concerned. And the TV series was called Search. Now, the rotating stars through it are pretty cool, and I like all of them. We got Anthony Franciosa, who'd done the same kind of thing with Name of the Game a few years earlier. We have Doug McClure, and we also have Hugh O'Brien. So between them, they're very kind of 1970s television action star kind of actors. You got Burgess Meredith playing the controller Cameron, and he's aided by a bunch of other specialists, including a medical expert played by Angel Tompkins, who was one of the most beautiful women in 1970s television. It's got the usual action format within the 1 hour context, but it works, and I like the fact that they create this technology for the series, which we're only just kind of reaching now. They've monitored by satellite. You've got 2-way audio visual, you've got telemetry happening as well, and you've got people at the back end who can act like an internet for the agents in the field. So a lot of people had trouble with the series at the time because the technology was just a little too advanced, and some of the audiences didn't really grab it. So it only went, I think, 1 season, and nonetheless, I liked it when it came out first, and I like it still. I think it holds up pretty well within that context of a 1970s American television format, which is not sophisticated in some ways and kind of not exactly dumbed down, but there was subject matter they couldn't handle because censorship was very much a thing on the screen at that time. But nonetheless, in spite of that, I like it. I like the action sequences. There's some good car stunts and a few other bits of stunt work in there, which really make it a lot of fun. And seeing it for the first time on a clear thing rather than a shitty old television set was a lot of fun for me. So revisiting Search was very, very enjoyable, and I recommend that you try it if you get a chance to. Now let's see, let's stay in the 70s. I'll do the 70s ones and then go into one that I like from the 1980s. This one's a little bit different because it's from England, and it's not in an adventure context. It's a series of, let's see how many there were, 2, 4, 6, 7, if you add the extra one they put in there, different television plays by Nigel Neal, the guy who gave us Quatermass in the Pit, all those kind of things, and a very interesting one-off British television horror show called The Stone Tape, and it is Beasts. Now, if you haven't seen Beasts, it is really good. Now, I'm going to read some of the précis for the different episodes of Beasts because the concepts are really good, and the way that they conveyed them on a very low budget really works. Now, the first one was called Baby. It's about a woman who's moved into a country house with her husband. She's pregnant, and they find a mummified baby in the walls of the house as they're renovating it, and they end up being kind of haunted by the baby. It's a very tight little piece. It goes places where it's not exactly a Rosemary's Baby kind of thing because it's a very different context, but it really does work, and just check that one out. Then you got a really weird one. Now, Nigel Neal had a lot of reputation, so he could get away with this. It's set in a disused aquarium in a seaside resort, which is a man wants to renovate and turn into something else entirely. And it's haunted by the ghost of the dolphin that used to be the main attraction at the aquarium. Now, it sounds totally silly, and it is to a certain extent, but somehow it works in context. It's called Buddy Boy, that episode, and it's really kind of fun to watch. Again, you've got to take the context of the 1970s. This isn't going to be a splatter series by any means, but it kind of worked for me. There's one called The Dummy, where an actor is playing a killer in a kind of Freddy Krueger / Jason Voorhees / Michael Myers kind of film, and kind of gets taken over by the character in the studio as they're doing it. Now, that one's kind of interesting because they give you a little bit of what happens in a fairly low budget horror movie studio. There's a lot of kind of hidden information that's given to us on how these things work and how producers and directors and stars and other crew members act. So there's a little bit of that kind of hidden knowledge in there, which makes it work for me. And then there's one I don't remember. I watched this about 6-7 months ago, called What Big Eyes. It's about a scientist who tries to turn himself into a wolf. Don't remember anything about that one, so it probably wasn't the best. Now, there was also an extra episode which was done as a standalone TV show, a one-off standalone TV show in the 1970s called Murrain, which is about a social worker who goes to a little rural country town to help an old woman who's having trouble. And what she doesn't know is this old woman is a witch, and that the villagers are being nasty to her for very, very specific reasons. It's a beautiful slow burn, and it really works, Murrain. Then there is the episode that really blew me away. It's called During Barty's Party. Now, Barty's Party is a radio show that's on Saturday nights in the world of the episode, which is kind of kind of talk back show with a bit of music in it. And the setting is there's an old couple who, well, not old, middle-aged couple who are living in a country house they've just moved to, and they're very comfortable and middle class. And as time goes on during the evening, and partly from the radio broadcast, partly from what they see and hear, they find out that there is an immense horde of carnivorous rats that are going across the countryside, killing people and just taking it over and eating everything. And there's a slow escalation of horror in that one. It is beautiful. You never see a rat, but you hear it and you hear the reactions to it, and you get the news broadcasts. And During Barty's Party is a fantastic piece of television drama and television horror that you really should check out in Beasts. So let's move on to a favourite of mine, kind of lighter in tone. It was made by ITV in 1972 and 1973 in the UK. It was created and produced by Jerry Anderson, who did Thunderbirds and Supercar and Fireball XL5 and Stingray and all those other things. Keep Stingray in mind, by the way. But it's an action-adventure series with Robert Vaughn, and it's called The Protectors. It also stars Norrie Dawn Porter. Robert Vaughn plays Harry Rule, a private eye based in London. Norrie Dawn Porter plays the Contessa di Contini, who helps him with his stuff. There's also Tony Anholt as a French secret agent guy who helps them out. And they're all those kind of things, kind of like The Persuaders. The Protectors is shot mostly on location across Europe, so you've got those beautiful, lush 1970s European locations, and you've got action sequences. You've got some very tight plots. Couple of flaws with it. Well, one flaw with it particularly, each episode of this is only half an hour. It should have been an hour, but they decided, for reasons who the fuck knows, to only make them in half-hour episodes, so there's no time or room for subplots and things like that. They just got the main story, bam, 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 it goes through it. Now, people remember The Protectors because Tony Christie's song, Avenues and Alleyways, was the theme song for this series and appears in every episode, and it's kind of cool. I like the cast. I think the ensemble cast of Robert Vaughn, Nori Dawn Porter and Tony Anholt really works. You get a whole bunch of guest artists on there. I think Ingrid Pitt turns up in one of them. And it's very 1970s, and half-hour episodes, you can just kind of snack on them almost. You just watch a couple of episodes, put it away. It was released on DVD around 2002, 2003. Might still be able to find it somewhere in a new one. And they did it in a really stupid way. So there were 2 seasons, and each season was like 3 videos all bought separately in the UK. So you had to buy like season 1 part 1, season 1 part 2, season 1 part 3. Really bad marketing on it, but I like it, and I recommend if you can find a copy of it, and I'll try to put a link to somewhere where you can buy it. You should really try to find The Protectors. It works really well. The last one I'm going to talk about is a hidden gem from the 1980s. It was produced and created by Stephen J. Cannell, who produced things like The A-Team and The Rockford Files and a whole bunch of other series that people remember from the time. And it only went, I think, 1 season, and it's called Stingray. Now have a look at that font. Is that font the most 1980s thing you have ever seen in your life? Now Stingray, great concept. I like the concept for the series. Nick Mancuso plays a guy who used to be with the CIA, a guy called Ray, who goes and helps people who have got themselves into situations they can't get out of. He's only got one price that he asks people when he helps them out, and that is that one day he will come to them and they will owe him a favor. And he uses the people who have given him previous favors to help him overcome the bad guys. There's lots of car stunts in this because he drives a beautiful Corvette Stingray. There's some great action sequences, and Nick Mancuso, mostly as a character actor, is really fine as the protagonist, who's mysterious. We know very, very little about him, but it really works in the context. It's very 1980s in the directorial style, but it really does work, and it is one that I really like. And we're back. Yeah, the battery sometimes goes unexpectedly on this camera. It's the only fault I've got with it. But anyway, there are a few 1970s and 1980s TV series that you should check out. I'm going to post links in the bottom of the show notes for places where you might be able to pick them up. I think they're worth picking up. They're a lot of fun, and particularly if you are not aware of what's gone before in television, it's good to kind of visit this kind of stuff. And if you've seen it before, it's good to revisit it as well. Nostalgia is a fun thing, and it's not something that we should ever be ashamed of. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I really enjoyed this one, watching some of these episodes and diving back into it. I think that kind of refreshed me a little bit, because things are kind of tough at the moment where I am with the lockdowns, but I really enjoyed watching it. So anyway, take care of yourselves, follow the science, and wherever you are on this clay and granite planet, please wear a mask when you go out. It's not going to do any harm, and it will do a lot of good. So anyway, take care of yourselves. Watch good TV, watch bad TV, watch old TV, watch new TV. And if you are so inclined, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give me a like on there. Tell me what your favorite 1970s TV series were. And as usual, you can support the channel for as little as $1 US a month by going to patreon.com/paleocinema and throwing me a few pennies. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and I will be back very soon with something else entirely. I've got some good ideas coming up, and in October I'm going to be doing a lot of horror stuff, so look forward to that. Catch you then.